Chosen one. This isn't just a message. This is spiritual proof, because they thought you were crazy, and now they're choking on the silence you left behind. Have you ever watched someone destroy themselves, trying to destroy you? Have you ever sat in the quiet after the storm and wondered why the people who hurt you the most are now the ones falling apart? Have you ever felt that strange, holy satisfaction watching karma work in real time and then felt guilty for feeling it? Stop feeling guilty. What you're witnessing isn't coincidence, it's consecration. They started a fire thinking it would consume you, but fires don't just burn forward, beloved, they circle back. And now that same flame they lit with their lies, their betrayal, their whispered poison, it's burning down everything they tried to build on your ashes. You weren't crazy, you were chosen. And there's a difference the spiritually blind will never understand. Right now, someone who wounded you is lying awake at 3 a.m., scrolling through old conversations, checking your social media from fake accounts, asking mutual friends about you. They can't sleep. They can't think straight, because heaven itself has turned their own weapons against them. If you've ever been betrayed by someone who smiled in your face and stabbed you in private, type 77 in the comments right now. Not for me, for your healing. Because your testimony is about to become someone else's breakthrough. And thank you to every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. They turned your pain into entertainment. But heaven was watching. Every tear you cried in secret, every night you questioned your worth, every moment you wondered if God had forgotten you, it was all being recorded in the books of justice. And now the books are being balanced. This is bigger than revenge, chosen one. This is restoration. This is the universe itself rising to defend what they tried to destroy. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was the calm before divine intervention. So buckle up, because what you're about to discover will shatter every lie they told about you and reveal the terrifying truth about what happens when finite minds try to wage war against infinite purpose. Subscribe if you're tired of playing small while carrying something sacred. Hit that notification bell if you're ready to watch the tables turn. Because chosen one, they really did mess up bad, and heaven is about to show them exactly how bad. Let's begin. Do you remember the exact moment everything changed? When the person you trusted most looked you dead in the eye and chose betrayal over truth? When you felt that sick twist in your stomach, not from what they did, but from realizing they'd been planning it all along? You weren't attacked, chosen one, you were activated. Listen to me carefully. That moment when they turned on you wasn't random. It wasn't bad luck. It wasn't even personal. It was prophetic. Because the moment someone touches what God has anointed, heaven doesn't just take notes, it takes action. The Bible says in Isaiah 54:17, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." But here's what they don't tell you in Sunday school. That verse doesn't just mean the weapon won't work. It means the weapon will backfire. It will turn on the one who forged it. Right now, pause and think. Who was it? Who smiled in your face while sharpening the knife? Who spoke blessing over your life while secretly praying for your downfall? Who celebrated your victories publicly while privately celebrating your failures? You know their name. You feel it burning in your chest right now. They thought they were destroying you. But here's the holy truth that'll shake you to your core. They were actually exposing themselves. The storm didn't come to destroy you. It came to reveal who they really were when the lights went down and the crowd went home. God allowed them to show their true colors because He needed you to see what you were fighting. You can't defeat an enemy you can't identify. And now you know. Psalm 37:14-15 says, "The wicked draw the sword and bend the bow to bring down the poor and needy, but their swords will pierce their own hearts, and their bows will be broken." Do you see it happening yet? Are you watching them stumble over their own lies? Are you witnessing their confidence crack? Are you feeling that strange sensation, not joy, not sadness, but something deeper, something that feels like vindication? That's not your flesh talking, beloved. That's your spirit recognizing divine justice in real time. They marked you thinking they were writing your obituary, but the moment their finger pointed at you, heaven's finger pointed back at them. The very day they decided you were their target, they became gods. And here's what's going to blow your mind. You didn't have to lift a finger. You didn't have to defend yourself. You didn't have to fight back. Because when God fights for you, the battle isn't just won, it's biblical. If you've ever felt spiritual attacks you couldn't explain, drop 77. You're not imagining it, you're remembering it. Your spirit knows what your mind is just catching up to. The question isn't whether they messed up. The question is, are you ready to discover just how catastrophically they underestimated who they were coming for? Because chosen one, what happened to them next? It's about to happen to everyone who's ever tried to dim your light. Do you remember the exact moment you realized they weren't just hurting you, they were studying you? Can you still feel that cold recognition when you understood their cruelty wasn't random, but research? Have you ever wondered why the people who caused you the most pain seemed more obsessed with your reaction than their own conscience? Listen to me, chosen one. They didn't just attack you, they built a monument to their own downfall and used your tears as bricks. Every whispered lie about you became another stone in their spiritual graveyard. Every time they celebrated your suffering, they were actually laying the foundation for their own destruction. They thought they were building their reputation on your ruins. But beloved, what they were really constructing was a Tower of Babel, and heaven was about to scatter their plans across the earth. You see, there's something the enemy never understood about touching God's anointed. Psalm 105:15 warns, "Touch not my anointed, and do my prophets no harm." They thought this was just ancient poetry. They're learning it's prophecy. You weren't their enemy, you were their exposure. Every cruel word they spoke revealed the darkness in their own heart. Every scheme they plotted against you exposed the emptiness in their own soul. They became so consumed with destroying you that they forgot to protect themselves. And while they were busy studying your pain, heaven was documenting their crimes. Think about it. Why did they need to justify hurting you so elaborately? Why did they spend more time explaining your destruction than building their own life? Because deep down, even they knew they were crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed. The more they obsessed over your pain, the more they unraveled. Like King Saul pursuing David through the wilderness, their jealousy became their madness. Their fixation became their destruction. They thought they were hunting you, but they were actually being hunted by the consequences of their own choices. And now they're crying out for help from the same universe they violated when they touched you. They're seeking healing from the same God they offended when they tormented his chosen. But here's what they don't understand. You can't wound heaven's beloved and then ask heaven for mercy. You survived because you were selected. You endured because you were elected. Every betrayal was a test you passed while they failed. Every lie they told about you became truth about them. They didn't just lose the battle, beloved, they lost themselves. The silence they used to mock is now the sound of their own emptiness echoing back at them. The isolation they forced on you has become their eternal loneliness. They created the very prison they now occupy. Call it out. Type "I was the test" if you now realize you weren't being punished. You were being confirmed. Because chosen one, while they were busy trying to break you, heaven was busy breaking them. And what's coming next will prove that when God says vengeance is mine, he doesn't just mean it, he means business. Did you ever wonder why chaos followed you wherever you went? Why every room you entered seemed to hold its breath? Why people gravitated towards you when their world was falling apart, but resented you when peace returned? You weren't a burden, beloved. You were the glue. They called you too intense, too deep, too much. But intensity isn't a flaw when you're the only one strong enough to hold broken pieces together. You were the gravitational force in their spinning universe, the steady heartbeat in their cardiac arrest of a life, and they hated you for it. Scripture tells us in Isaiah 32:2, each one will be like a shelter from the wind and a refuge from the storm. That was you, chosen one. While they created hurricanes, you became the eye of the storm, calm, centered, unshakable. But here's the devastating truth they're discovering now. When the anchor leaves, the ship doesn't just drift, it crashes. Every family gathering that turned into World War III the moment you stopped attending, every friend group that imploded after you walked away, every workplace that became a battlefield once your peaceful presence vanished, that wasn't coincidence, that was consequence. You were their emotional thermostat. When tensions rose, your silence cooled the room. When anger erupted, your calm absorbed the shockwaves. When chaos threatened to consume everything, your very presence whispered, "Peace, be still." And they took it for granted, called it weakness, mistook your strength for submission. Now look at them, scrambling for stability in relationships that crumble without your foundation, searching for peace in people who only know how to manufacture drama, begging therapists to teach them the emotional regulation you provided for free, without applause, without recognition. They're suffocating without your calm, drowning in the very chaos they once blamed you for trying to prevent. Proverbs 27:14 warns, "The one who blesses his neighbor with a loud voice early in the morning, it will be counted as a curse to him. But you blessed them with quiet strength, and they counted it as nothing." The phones that never rang when you needed support are now buzzing with their desperate attempts to recreate the peace you once carried. But peace isn't a person you can replace. It's a presence you can only receive. Type, "I was the peace," if your silence was the only thing holding their world together. They thought they were cutting dead weight when they pushed you away. Instead, they severed their lifeline. You weren't the problem they needed to solve, you were the solution they refused to value. And now, as their carefully constructed facades crumble like houses built on sand, one truth echoes louder than their regret. You can't rebuild an anchor. You can only hope it chooses to return. But here's what they'll never understand. Chosen one, some departures aren't temporary storms. They're permanent seasons. So what happens when the anchor decides it's tired of drowning to save a sinking ship? Did you ever wonder why everything fell apart the moment you walked away? Have you noticed how the people who called you too much are now drowning in chaos without your presence? Do you see them now scrambling, desperate, trying to recreate the very peace they once took for granted? Beloved, you weren't a burden. You were the glue. Listen carefully. When Jesus withdrew from the crowds, what happened? Matthew 14:13 tells us the multitudes followed him. Even in his absence, they felt the void. They knew something essential was missing. That's you, chosen one. You were never the problem, you were the solution. They were too blind to recognize. They called you intense, said you cared too much, whispered that you were exhausting to be around. But look at them now, suffocating without your calm, spiraling without your wisdom, collapsing without the very intensity they criticized. You see, there's a difference between being wanted and being needed. They didn't want your depth, but oh, how they needed it. Your presence was the thermostat in every room. When tension rose, you brought peace. When chaos erupted, you brought order. When fear crept in, you brought faith. Ecclesiastes 3-7 speaks of a time to keep silence and a time to speak. You knew both seasons. Your silence wasn't emptiness, it was fullness. It was the weight of wisdom choosing its moments. But they mistook your measured words for weakness, your thoughtful pauses for uncertainty. Now watch them, really watch them. See how they stumble through decisions you would have guided them away from. Notice how their relationships crumble without your steady hand. Observe how they chase drama because they no longer have your peace to rest in. You were their anchor, dear one. And when you finally pulled that anchor up, when you stopped holding their world steady, everything began to drift. Everything began to sink. The prophet Isaiah declared in chapter 55-11, "My word shall not return unto me void." Your words of caution, your gentle corrections, your loving boundaries, they're echoing now in their consequences. Every warning they ignored is manifesting in their reality. Here's what breaks my heart. You probably blamed yourself, thought maybe you should have stayed, wondered if leaving made you selfish. But God never calls his children to be doormats for other people's dysfunction. They're calling now, aren't they? Suddenly remembering your birthday, texting after months of silence, acting like nothing happened. Because they've tasted life without your stabilizing presence, and it's bitter. But you can't go back to being their life support system. You can't return to being taken for granted, because your calling is higher than their convenience. Type, "I was the peace," if your silence was the only thing holding their world together. The question isn't whether they need you back. The question is, now that you know your true worth, what will you do with this revelation? Because chosen one, there's something even more powerful than being the anchor. Listen to me, chosen one. What they meant for evil, God meant for good. Genesis 50-20 wasn't just written for Joseph, it was written for you. Every rumor was a chisel. Every betrayal carved something holy. They thought they were destroying you, but they were sculpting a masterpiece. Each lie they told wasn't tearing you down, it was chipping away everything that wasn't authentically you. You know what really happened? They accidentally became your architects. Think about it. Every attack made you stronger. Every rejection redirected you toward your purpose. Every night you cried yourself to sleep, you were being refined in the furnace of affliction. Isaiah 48:10 says, "I have refined you, but not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction." But here's where it gets supernatural. They tried to write your obituary, but God used it as your origin story. Every person who walked away cleared the path for your destiny. Every door they slammed shut was God redirecting you toward the one he was about to open. You weren't losing people, you were losing distractions. You weren't facing setbacks, you were being set up for a comeback so powerful it would leave them speechless. Right now, the very people who tried to bury you are watching you bloom. The ones who counted you out are now counting your victories. The voices that said you'd never make it are now whispering, how did they do it? Here's how. When you're chosen, your pain has purpose. Your scars become your credentials. Your wilderness becomes your training ground. David didn't become king in the palace, he was prepared in the cave. Moses didn't learn leadership in Egypt, he was molded in the desert. Jesus didn't reveal his glory on a throne, he demonstrated it on a cross. Your breaking wasn't your ending, it was your beginning. Every betrayal that should have destroyed you only revealed how indestructible you really are. Every person who tried to dim your light only proved how bright you actually shine. They couldn't break what God built unbreakable. Look at you now, still standing, still believing, still rising. That's not luck, beloved. That's legacy in the making. They wanted to see you crumble. Instead, they're watching you soar. They plotted your downfall. God plotted your elevation. And guess which plan is winning? The same hands that tried to push you down are now shaking as they watch you rise. The same voices that declared you finished are now stammering as they witness your fulfillment. Because legends aren't born in comfort, they're forged in fire. Comment, I'm rising from the rubble if you feel it. This isn't your comeback, it's your arrival. You were never meant to stay where they left you. You were meant to rise from where they dropped you and show the world what resurrection looks like in real time. But here's what's about to shake you to your core. They're searching for you in all the wrong places, beloved. Checking your social media at midnight, asking mutual friends if you're okay, driving past places they know you used to go. But here's what's driving them absolutely insane: they can't find you because you've ascended. You didn't disappear. You transcended, and there's a difference that's keeping them awake at night. Remember when Jesus told his disciples in John 14:2, "In my Father's house are many mansions"? He wasn't just talking about heaven, chosen one. He was talking about levels, spiritual elevations that some people simply cannot reach. And when you walked away in holy silence, you didn't just leave their drama, you left their dimension. Let me ask you something that'll cut deep. How many nights did you lie awake, begging God to remove the pain they caused? How many times did you cry out for justice, for vindication, for them to just stop? But God had a different plan. He didn't remove your pain, he removed you, lifted you so high above their chaos that their voices became whispers, then echoes, then nothing. You didn't go ghost, you became untouchable. Think about Elijah. When Jezebel threatened his life, he didn't fight back, he didn't argue, he didn't try to prove his worth. 2 Kings 2:11 tells us he was taken up by a whirlwind into heaven. One moment he was there, the next he was gone, unreachable, beyond their reach forever. That's your story, isn't it? The silence that's haunting them wasn't your weakness, it was your ascension. They're frantically texting people who knew you both. Have you heard from them? Are they talking about what happened? But here's the supernatural truth that's eating them alive. You're not talking about them at all. You're not even thinking about them. Because when God elevates you, he doesn't just change your location, he changes your frequency. You're operating on a wavelength they can no longer access. They're stuck on AM radio while you've moved to satellite. They're sending smoke signals while you're communicating with heaven. And oh, how this terrifies them, because revenge they could handle, anger they could deflect. But your absence, your complete, holy detachment, that's the one weapon they have no defense against. Proverbs 27:14 says, "He who blesses his friend with a loud voice, rising early in the morning, it will be counted a curse to him." Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing, say nothing, explain nothing, just ascend. They expected tears. They got transcendence. They expected breakdown. They got breakthrough. They expected you to chase them for closure. Instead, you closed the door from a place they'll never reach. If you've walked away in silence and never looked back, type "unreachable" in the comments. You didn't run. You rose. But here's where it gets dangerous for them, chosen one, because your silence isn't just absence. It's evidence. They used knives. You used stillness. And that's what drove them absolutely insane, wasn't it? Your refusal to fight dirty, your choice to stay quiet when they expected explosions. They came at you with everything: lies, manipulation, public humiliation, and you. You just stood there, breathing, watching, waiting. They called it weakness. God called it wisdom. Listen to me, chosen one. That restraint they mocked, that wasn't passivity. That was power in its purest form. Jesus himself demonstrated this when they spat on him, when they crowned him with thorns, when they nailed him to wood. He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth, Isaiah 53:7. Your silence wasn't surrender, it was strategy. But here's what they'll never understand. Every time you chose peace over retaliation, every moment you bit your tongue instead of unleashing the truth that would have destroyed them, you were clothing yourself in armor they couldn't see. Spiritual armor, divine protection that deflects every weapon formed against you. You thought you were being weak? No, beloved. You were being wise. You were storing up treasure in heaven while they were spending their souls on temporary victories. And now look at them. The very people who called you soft are now falling apart. The ones who said you were too sensitive are drowning in their own emotions. The same voices that mocked your restraint are now screaming into the void, begging for the peace you carried all along. They didn't realize the armor you wore was spiritual, and they could never touch it. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, Isaiah 54:17. That's not just a pretty verse, dear one. That's a promise. Every insult they hurled bounced off. Every scheme they plotted crumbled. Every trap they set caught them instead. Your gentleness confused them because they've never seen strength that doesn't need to prove itself. Your quiet confidence terrified them because they've only known power that screams for attention. But you moved like still water, deep, dangerous, unstoppable. They expected you to break. Instead, you bent like a reed in the storm while their rigid pride snapped under pressure. They wanted you to fight at their level. But you were operating from a dimension they couldn't reach. Every tear you didn't shed in public became a river of blessing in private. Every word you didn't speak in anger became a prayer that moved mountains. Every step you took away from their chaos brought you closer to your calling. And now they're learning what Proverbs 16:32 means. Better a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city. You conquered through restraint. You won through waiting. You defeated them by refusing to become them. If you've been mocked for staying calm, type, my peace is my sword, because they never saw it coming. But here's where the story gets even more beautiful, chosen one, because what they thought was your greatest weakness is about to become their greatest fear. Listen to me. Chosen one, you were the blueprint they tried to erase. Now you're the billboard they can't ignore. Do you feel it? That shift in the atmosphere every time your name gets mentioned? That uncomfortable silence that falls over rooms when people realize you're not broken, you're bulletproof? They thought burying you would silence the message. But here's what happens when you try to kill something God is using as a witness. It doesn't die, it multiplies. Every attack they launched became a testimony. Every lie they spread became a spotlight. And now the truth is screaming your name so loud, even their own consciences can't drown it out. You didn't just survive their schemes, beloved. You became living proof that some things are too anointed to be destroyed. Remember Job? The enemy stripped him of everything: wealth, health, family. His own wife told him to curse God and die. But Job's response? Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. And what happened? God didn't just restore Job. He doubled everything the enemy stole. That's you right now. You're not just getting back what they took. You're becoming the very thing they feared you'd become all along, undeniable. But here's where it gets supernatural. You think your survival was about you? Think again. Right now, someone watching this is sitting in the exact same dark place you crawled out of. They're questioning if they'll make it, if God sees them, if their pain has purpose. And your life, your breathing, your healing, your rising is the answer to their desperate prayer. You became the signal flare in someone else's darkness. Isaiah 61:3 says God gives us beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. You're not just wearing that garment, chosen one. You've become it. Every morning you wake up whole is a sermon. Every day you choose peace over bitterness is a miracle someone else needs to witness. Every time you smile instead of seeking revenge, you're proving that grace is more powerful than grudges. They tried to make you a cautionary tale. God made you a resurrection story. And the beautiful irony? The very people who tried to silence your voice are now the ones amplifying it. Their attacks became your platform. Their hatred became your fuel. Their betrayal became your breakthrough. You didn't just overcome, beloved. You became the overcomer others are praying to meet. So when doubt whispers that maybe you imagined it all, when loneliness suggests you're forgotten, when fear tries to convince you that you're still vulnerable, remember this: You are not just a survivor. You are a signal. Drop "I am the signal" if you know your life is proof that nothing can kill what God protects. Because the enemy's biggest mistake wasn't underestimating your strength. It was overestimating their power against someone heaven refuses to let fall. And now they're learning the terrifying truth about what happens when you wage war against a soul God has already marked for victory. Dear chosen one, something shifted the moment you stopped explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand you. You felt it, didn't you? That moment when you finally said enough, when you stopped shrinking to fit into spaces that were never designed for your spirit. When you stopped apologizing for the fire they couldn't handle. When you realized that their rejection wasn't a reflection of your worth, it was proof of their blindness. The Bible tells us in Isaiah 54:17, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." But here's what they didn't expect. You weren't just surviving their weapons. You were transforming under their heat. Every lie they spoke became a furnace that refined your gold. Every betrayal became a scalpel that removed what wasn't meant to stay. You're not just surviving, you're glowing in places they can't reach. And now they're panicking. Because a chosen one who knows their worth is the most dangerous force on this earth. Not dangerous to the innocent, dangerous to the illusion. Dangerous to the lies. Dangerous to the systems built on keeping God's people small. Think about Moses, 40 years in the wilderness before he returned with power that made Pharaoh tremble. Think about David, rejected by his own family, hunted by a king, yet crowned by the Almighty. Think about Jesus himself. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But John 1:12 declares, "But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God." They tried to curse what was already crowned. Here's the truth that's making them lose sleep. You don't need their permission anymore. You don't need their approval. You don't need their understanding. Because the one who called you from the foundation of the world never asked for a committee vote. Right now, someone who wounded you is scrolling through your posts, trying to decode your peace. They're asking mutual friends about you. They're lying awake, wondering how you're thriving without them. Because your freedom is their conviction. Your joy is their judgment. They expected you to stay broken. They expected you to stay bitter. They expected you to carry their poison forever. But chosen ones don't stay poisoned, we become immune. We don't stay wounded, we become wise. The spiritual war has already been won, beloved. Revelation 12:11 says, "And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony." Your testimony isn't just your story, it's your weapon. Your survival isn't just personal, it's prophetic. You are the evidence that God keeps his promises. You are the proof that what the enemy meant for evil, God meant for good. You are the walking, breathing declaration that no weapon formed against you can prosper. So let them watch, let them wonder, let them whisper. Because while they're busy trying to figure out how you're still standing, you're busy building something they could never touch. If this whole message felt like your life being read aloud, type 77 and declare, "I'm not sorry for who I've become." Share this with another chosen one who's still doubting their light. Because the world needs awakened, chosen ones more than ever. But first, we need to talk about what happens when the awakened start moving together. Beloved chosen one, as we close this sacred moment together, I want you to remember 3 unshakable truths. First, what you've endured wasn't random, it was preparation. Every betrayal, every sleepless night, every moment you questioned your worth was God refining you for something greater than your pain. You weren't being punished, you were being positioned. Second, their panic isn't your problem. When people who hurt you start falling apart, that's not your responsibility to fix. That's divine justice working on your behalf. You don't have to feel guilty for their consequences. You didn't cause their downfall, their own choices did. Third, your silence was never weakness, it was wisdom. When you stopped defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, you stepped into a power they couldn't touch. Your peace became your weapon, and your distance became your victory. Listen to me carefully. You are not alone in this journey. Even in your darkest hour, when it felt like the whole world had turned against you, the Lord was right there, closer than your breath, nearer than your heartbeat. And this community, we see you, we understand. We've walked this path too. Let me ask you something that might change everything. What if all the pain you've endured was actually God preparing you to help someone else who's walking through the same fire right now? Now, let's pray together. Wherever you are right now, I want you to close your eyes and feel the presence of the Almighty surrounding you. Father God, I lift up every precious soul who has heard this message today. Lord, You see their tears, the ones they've cried in secret, the ones no one else witnessed. You know their heartbreak, their questions, their moments of doubt. I pray right now that you would wrap your arms around them like a loving father comforting a wounded child. Heal their hearts, Lord. Restore their confidence. Remind them that they are fearfully and wonderfully made, chosen before the foundation of the world. For those who feel forgotten, remind them they are remembered. For those who feel rejected, show them they are accepted in the beloved. For those who feel powerless, awaken the giant within them that you placed there from the beginning. Lord, open doors that no man can shut. Vindicate them publicly where they were humiliated privately. Let their enemies become their footstool, and let their pain become their platform to help others. Give them supernatural peace that passes all understanding. Give them strength for today and hope for tomorrow. And Lord, surround them with genuine people who will love them for who they are, not what they can provide. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Asterisk. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us, what's one thing God is showing you about your identity as His chosen one? Your testimony might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this message blessed you, please share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone in their struggle. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is remind each other that we're all in this together. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Your support means the world to me, but more importantly, it helps us reach other chosen ones who are still believing lies about themselves. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Thank you for being vulnerable enough to receive this message. Thank you for being brave enough to keep going when everything in you wanted to quit. You are loved. You are chosen. You are not alone. Until next time, keep shining your light. The world needs what you carry. God bless you.